not including marijuana or
Not including marijuana.
not including marijuana like heroin or cocaine or penicillin. Do you think anything like that should be legalized?
Well, you're mixing two different types of drugs. You're mixing illicit drugs and you're mixing pharmaceutical drugs. So penicillin is legal. So that is legal, but illegal drugs, no, I don't think they should be legalized.
Do you think other students at STAG are doing more than just marijuana?
I guarantee it. I know it. I hear about it. They love the mollies. They talk about bars all the time. They're using.
They're talking about edibles and stuff. Mm-hmm. They're talking about all of it.
They talk about also eating the what's that stuff? The uppers. What is it? They eat the kids that have ADHD.
Adderall.
Adderall. Kids are eating that
Um,
stuff, and it's wrong. It messes them up.
Yeah. How do you feel? So recently, I've seen some students actually almost die from stuff like Xanax. How do you feel about that drug actually getting around?
I have a tough time with regards to that because parents are being irresponsible with it. They leave it inside the bathroom medicine cabinet. It's accessible to students. Students will grab that stuff up. I've heard them going to parties pouring all kinds of pharmaceuticals into a bowl and they just grab whatever, not even knowing what they're taking. Could be heart medication, blood pressure medication. They don't even know what it is. That's a problem for me. It should be under lock
Do you
and key.
think the students getting acknowledged by drugs has something to do with family, or are the crowds just hanging around them?
Both. I think it's environment, and it so definitely has something to do with the people they hang out with, the approach or the thought that the parents have with regards to drugs. That definitely has an impact on it.
Now, I know you growing up in your era, there was a lot of work about cocaine and stuff. Do you think there are a lot of more lethal drugs than that back then compared to now?
No, there's a lot more lethal drugs that are designer drugs now than there used to be.
Well, I noticed that adults, they're taking these drugs that, like nothing. I've seen comedians, I've seen really great actors take them, and they're taking them like nothing. But are you afraid, or do you think that students could get a hold of something like, I don't really know, like
Prescription drug or
prescription drugs, and then just mixing them with even more stronger drugs?
yes, that's a problem for me. The cocktails and stuff is a huge problem for me. Here's the biggest deal with drugs, guys. The kids' brains are not developed yet. And by them, even smoking weed, which kids think are legal, which it is not legal for kids. You have to be 21.
It's like alcohol. It's like alcohol.
And what it's doing is, your body, your brain is not developed yet, so you are creating pathways, neural pathways. So the brain works on electrical impulses. And when you are taking drugs, smoking weed and stuff, you're not developing those pathways. At about the age of 22 or so, 25, your brain freezes and locks in. And whatever pathway you have developed at that point is what you're going to have the rest of your life. Kids are messing up the pathway and don't even realize it.
So I'm pretty sure, I did have your class last year, and I'm pretty sure you noticed that some students were doing narcotics. Psychologically, how do you think that they will be in the future?
Like I said, it messes with their development.
Yeah,
I don't see a lot of...
This a lot. I tell them a lot that they think that marijuana does not do anything to them.
Oh, it sure does.
It does. It burns their brain cells. They don't think that, but it's actually doing something.
I think the worst thing they ever did was make marijuana legal, because it's sending the wrong message to kids. Medically, I'll take it, but just recreationally, I think it's wrong. I have kids coming to class stoned all the time, and they think it's okay, it's the thing to do. Have you smoked weed today before you came to class? Not you. But I'll ask that, and they'll be like, yeah, and nothing happens about it. The school allows it, and it's very frustrating.
So, I bet when you were growing up, a lot of people, maybe not everybody,
A lot of people were doing it.
Yeah, maybe like weed, cocaine, heroin. That was like three of the main drugs going on, right?
Mostly cocaine and weed. Heroin was kind of a heavy drug, and it was almost a taboo. Those were heavy skaters that would be doing it. Heavy goth people were doing it and stuff, getting into that. It really isn't prevalent amongst high school kids too much. I mean, now they're starting to snort it and stuff, and I've seen people go from snorting to them shooting it because they can't get the same high.
Yeah.
It starts out a designer drug. I had a family member die from
What
that.
people don't get when they're taking these drugs, they start to lose the feeling. They start to lose the rise and the good feeling. They start to do it. They take more. They do more. They start taking
keep chasing the high.
doses, yeah. Do you think that if students keep on taking this, it's going to really affect them?
I know it will.
Yeah.
I know it will.
Do you think people are getting their hands on drugs because Trump keeps on mentioning, oh, we're getting drugs from Mexico? Do you think that's like completely true or not completely true?
It is hugely true. There's a big influx coming from the cartels with methamphetamines, weed, other heroin, synthetic stuff. It's very true. Very true. They say 90% of the methamphetamine and stuff that's produced comes from cartels from Mexico. And that's one of the worst drugs.
I've noticed that like people like Prince or Michael Jackson, they do large amounts. Do you think if they didn't take as much of the doses that they took, they would be around still?
Oh, guaranteed, they overdose.
Now, people like, I don't know, do you remember a student last year who always came in high? I forgot what his name, Santino. Do you think if he stopped doing that, he would have been more active and less?
Very much so. That's common sense. They're lethargic. They're unmotivated. They're not as responsible. It's of course.
Now, do you think if kids didn't get their hands on drugs, they'd be a lot more mature and less like children?
I don't know about that.
About like they're legalizing more drugs like marijuana and stuff like that. How do you feel about that?
Marijuana is probably fine. I don't know about other drugs. I think they would have to do some research on it before they actually legalized other drugs. But if they legalize the drugs, then it takes away some of the profit that the drug dealers might make, and then send out.
That's what I read on about. If Trump asked the president of Mexico legalize all drugs, do you think that would actually bring down cartels and stuff and stop production of drugs like heroin, meth, and stuff like that, and opiums?
Possibly. It might work, but I would say that they would really have to look at it. 'Cause some of those other drugs, like meth and heroin, have a lot more severe consequences long-term than marijuana. Marijuana will have long-term consequences.
So say if they made heroin like a painkiller, do you think that would be good as a pharmaceutical?
You mean that they use as a painkiller?
Yeah, what if they would use it as a painkiller?
It depends on how addictive it is. That's what I mean by the research. If you're putting, because you know the drug epidemic they're having right now with the legal drugs that people are using over the counter, painkillers, and they can't get off it. That's what I'm talking about. There's people that are committing suicide. There's people committing crimes because they become addicted to these drugs and they're stealing them from pharmacies. They're stealing them, breaking into people's houses to steal them out
I
of their
noticed that they've
cabinets.
been recently doing it a lot in Stockton, especially breaking into places like Cito's Pharmacy and Walgreens, taking opiums and stuff like that. And I don't think
it's a hard answer. It's not easy. It's not a quick and easy, simple
There's a lot
thing.
of people that think drug legalization